Crypto Kids, welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be jumping into the price of Bitcoin, which saw a drop of approximately 15.2% after we had the ETF launches. Now we discussed about this rising wedge pattern over on the Moon Show yesterday, just over 24 hours ago. And there was also on the smaller time frame a double top forming. And of course, we live streamed the dump live on the Crypto Kid channel. That's why it's super important to always turn on the notification bell and watch every single video, as it may be just the very important one. So we saw the dump, and the levels that I was discussing that Bitcoin could drop to was first 42.5K, and then possibly if we break 42.5, 40.7K. And ladies and gents, Bitcoin did correct all the way down to the level of approximately, let's see how much that was. So $41,500 was the wick of this corrective candle, but we held up perfectly on the 42.5K level. I did mention that I'm not going to short Bitcoin, rather buy Bitcoin cheaper. So we're going to be going over whether this dump will continue going into the next week, as we do have another very bearish sign on the weekly time frame, and we do have some final updates regarding the regarding the actual ETFs and how much volume is coming into them. Jim Cramer was right for like the first time. BlackRock has now $497 million worth in Bitcoin, and we're going to debunk this was a flop situation, because they really weren't a flop. The ETFs were super successful, and in the macro sense, it's going to be super bullish from where I'm sitting. But ladies and gents, let's jump straight into the content. So in terms of my current Bitcoin position, I have a long on the $10,000 trading account, which we're trying to get to $100,000 by the end of this year. And it's still in some okay profits, right? Compared to how much capital we put into it. It's in 94%. We entered at 40,570. The only thing I changed earlier on today was the stop loss, because we did pull out some capital. So technically, if we do see a drop to that level, and I may change this later on depending how the market is looking like, if we see a rebound from this 42.5K area, then of course I will change it. But it is looking scary, and I do think Bitcoin could potentially fall further. And at those points, I am going to be buying Bitcoin cheaper, and I'll probably load more into these limit orders. As you guys know, I am planning on going full all in into Bitcoin with my portfolio, and these are the places that I'm going to be doing so. And if you guys are looking for a place to be trading crypto or Bitcoin, which is also a crypto, you can head over to the description below and sign up to Bitflex, which is where I'm personally trading, to get up to $88,888 worth in prizes and bonuses. And I have a video right here on how you can use a cryptocurrency exchange if you don't know how to do so, because for all the beginners, I think it's super important. When I first started, I found it very hard to do, so this video should help you out a lot. But jumping back onto the chart, we can see here that Bitcoin had a beautiful exhaustion of buyers. So this is a shooting star candle. A very similar one we can see on the weekly time frame that is a bit scary. Well, I'll get into that. And we also saw a bearish stochastic crossover. Simultaneously, the total money flow into Bitcoin was also dropping, and we had a massive bearish divergence that Carl was talking about in his videos. So this kind of all played out at once and led Bitcoin to this drop. It was also majorly a buy the rumor, sell the news situation. So coming up towards the ETF launch, Bitcoin pumped like 80%. And that's why we kind of shouldn't be worried about this dump. And relative to the pump, it's nothing. And hey, look, we just got to be very happy with how the ETFs have impacted the markets overall, because without it, right, we wouldn't have seen this astronomical move and give hope to crypto investors again. That wouldn't have happened. And that actually was a 94% move ever since we saw the news about BlackRock. And now we saw approximately a 12-13% correction, which is fine. But what is not fine is if this correction does decide to continue onwards, because what we do need to be on the lookout for is this right over here on the chart. We have a second MRI top, ladies and gents. And what is that? Well, the second MRI top is, the MRI roll is called the momentum reversal indicator. It's super rare, and it's a measure of momentum. So every 9 candles of either a bullish or bearish momentum, we see a reversal in the trend. So we've had 2 MRI tops back to back. On top of this, we're going to be seeing a crossover of the 3-period moving average and the 7-period moving average very soon, possibly on the start of the next candle if it starts trading in the red. And usually, ladies and gents, if we see such a shooting star candle like that accompanied by an MRI second top and a bearish crossover on these two moving averages, Bitcoin does, or any other asset class does, tend to see a huge drop towards the downside. We can see a notable crossover in these moving averages after such a large price movement upwards back here in the first half of the bull market in 2021. And after we saw that crossover, Bitcoin actually ended up dropping, and let's measure it from the bottom of this candle. Towards the bottom, we dropped by 41%. Now, I'm not saying we're going to drop by 41%, don't get me wrong. We also saw a beautiful crossover, by the way, here at the top of the second bull market that led to a dump, an initial dump of 45%, and then eventually, right, we dumped by 74%. But I don't think Bitcoin is going to do that, because we have some very important lines of support that's going to give us an opportunity to be buying Bitcoin cheaper, because these ETFs are bullish. Larry Fink says so. He called Bitcoin a perfect, well, I'll show you exactly what he said, but he is comparing Bitcoin with gold, and that is incredibly bullish given the fact that he's the CEO of the company that has the largest amount of assets under management, $9.4 trillion that we know of. So 34K and 38K are two beautiful levels that Bitcoin can drop down to. We also discussed this on our previous live stream. And if Bitcoin does drop down to those two levels, I think everybody's going to be calling for either 31K or lower. And at those 2 points, I'm going to be DCing into Bitcoin heavily. If Bitcoin were to ever drop to 31K, which is super critical level of support, you can see here that Bitcoin, once we saw this correction to 31K, we bounced off into amazing new bull markets. We've even tested it multiple times, right? If you count these candles in the recent couple of months. And after finally we broke out of it, we led to this huge move upwards. So I think that 31K would be so phenomenal and so healthy for Bitcoin, especially coming up towards the halving, because towards the halving, we see usually a 20 to 25% correction. And then after the halving, Bitcoin goes on a parabolic cycle. And you can see here that this candle on the monthly chart is also looking like a shooting star candle, but granted there's still 18 days for this candle to close, so it's too early to give a prediction on that. But what we can do is compare it to 2017, where on this candle, after such a bullish move upwards, we saw the local top and the CME launch, which was the first ever financial instrument that gave institutional investors an opportunity to get exposure into Bitcoin. And I think we could see a similar move here, right? So with the spot ETF launch, this could be the corrective candle signaling the local top in the short term. But eventually, after the halving, of course, we are expecting Bitcoin to smash above all-time highs and head to 90 to 95K based off of my analysis. So all of that is bullish in the macro sense, but in the short-term sense, we do need to be careful just in case Bitcoin corrects to the 38 to 34K levels. But when we look into Ethereum, we can see that Ethereum has been doing exceptionally well, right? And yes, it has been correcting in the past couple of hours, but I am planning on buying Ethereum and entering into a position if we fall back down to $2,350, as if Ethereum follows the same cycle as Bitcoin with the kind of legacy of how the ETFs went on, then coming towards the actual launch, Ethereum should also continue pumping. And I want to check out XRP and how XRP has done actually in the past 24 hours. So looking into XRP, I don't think it saw a massive impact. In fact, we're down to the levels where we had XRP before the news about the XRP spot ETF. So I think XRP is also massively undervalued, but in terms of a trade, I am planning on entering, as I said, into Ethereum very soon. But for XRP, I'll probably mention that in the next video, because I do think that XRP is very undervalued at the current moment with the news that we have regarding the ETFs. So I am planning on entering at $2,385, and if we do so, I think that could be an interesting opportunity to go into a long, but I will put my stop loss tight, as I usually do not like to trade altcoins due to a lot of risk, and this is with 5x leverage. So yeah, just I am being careful of that. Stop loss will probably be in the $2,200 ranges, and as soon as it's in profits, I'll probably switch it to break even. But going into the news regarding Bitcoin and the ETF, so Jim Cramer was right? He was right for the first time. He said Bitcoin is majorly topping at 49K or just after the ETF launches, and immediately after Bitcoin corrected by 15%. And I bet he is super happy about this because it is the literal only time that he was right about the market. So you know what? Fair play, Jim Cramer. Congratulations. We salute you. You deserved it. And as I mentioned earlier on in the video, BlackRock is now holding approximately $500 million in Bitcoin, up by $377 million in less than 24 hours. And I have a beautiful thread here explaining when ETF issuers actually accumulate Bitcoin and sell Bitcoin as the underlying asset in spot ETFs. So I definitely recommend checking this out. It's over on @CryptoKidCom on Twitter. It will give you a very nice insight on how ETFs actually buy and sell their underlying assets, and that can cause a significant price impact on Bitcoin over the macro scale. But basically, if Bitcoin continues going up, coming towards the halving, then institutions will accumulate more Bitcoin, and that should add to the respective pump that we usually see. And for everyone saying that the ETF launches were a flop, they were really not, because it's just a matter of managing expectations. You know, the people had expectations of tens of billions of dollars flowing in. Of course, that's not going to happen. And if you did listen out to James Seyfarth or Eric Balchunas, we even discussed it on the channel here, they were saying that $1 billion would be a very, very nice rewarding sum, as GLD, I believe, saw 2.5 billion in the first week. And in relative to that, we're doing very, very well. Yes, there is a question mark of, okay, are these inflows coming in from GBTC exiters, since the outflows there are a lot, or people that were holding MicroStrategy stock previously, or mining companies, them putting it here? Yeah, that is a question mark, and it's most likely true, as a lot of this inflow is coming from already existing Bitcoin holders, or Bitcoin relevant stockholders. But in the macro sense, when we have BlackRock CEO talking so bullishly about Bitcoin, comparing it to gold, and people eventually going to put it in their Roth IRAs and 401ks, I think you got to zoom out a little. And I mentioned this on my stream. I said that 2 streams ago. People overestimate what can be done in the short term, but underestimate what can be done in the long term. But by the way, did we make it to the top 25 most successful ETF launches in day one? Let's check it out. So here we have the least one. So 25th place is $246 million, and these are individual shares, not the group sum of shares. And we can see the one that saw the most flows were Bitwise, due to the low fees, I believe. And here we can see that it was $27.9 million. And no, that's not going to make it. So $237 million does not make the cutoff, as the 25th place is 246. But hey, it's okay. Zoom out. Zoom out when you're in doubt. Here, this is kind of the fee structures. We're seeing now 0% fees after waivers, and that is super bullish. They're trying to do that to attract as many investors as possible. Y'all still want an ETH spot ETF? Yes, we do. Okay, yes, Bitcoin did see a dump after the launch, but hey, compare the relative scales. We pumped by 80% after the news. So if that happens to Ethereum, then I believe it could take us all the way to $3,500. And sure, at that point, if we see a dump, it's okay. It's okay. But here we can see that a lot of outflows were from GBTC, and yes, it is a little bit frustrating that that's the case. But once we look at Larry Fink, he has mentioned some pretty bullish stuff about Bitcoin, comparing it to digital gold. And this is kind of a summary of the video that Michael Saylor reposted. It summarizes the conversation to, okay, if you're fearful of your government that's devaluating its currency, and you kind of want to escape out of that, like in many third world countries, or even second world countries like Turkey, for example, then instead of putting it into gold, you can put into as a store of value into Bitcoin, which is acting like digital gold. And he also mentioned that 3 years ago, yes, he was not thinking this way, but now, since 3 years ago, he is thinking way more differently. And hey, look, fair enough. He probably read the Bitcoin Standard and then completely changed his mind, because that's kind of what happened to me. Of course, I was super bullish on Bitcoin anyways, but now it's just at a different level where I want to go all in with everything I have. And here we just have a quick comparison of how all the ETFs are doing. Of course, terribly, as Bitcoin did see a drastic dump down. If you want to track these ETFs, I do recommend going to finance.yahoo.com and inputting their symbols here. You can see a lot of data with total volume traded, and I believe even how much Bitcoin they hold should be there too. So yeah, it's all in the red as usual. But what is super bullish is that Bitcoin versus every other major asset class between the years of 2013 to 2023 had the most amount of cumulative and annualized returns. especially if you compare it to the S&P 500 or gold, it did sizably much better. And if Bitcoin does continue this way, well, it'll still remain as one of the best investments of our generation. And that's why institutional investors will definitely FOMO. I think there is no way to get beyond that. And if we measured Bitcoin as a currency instead of a store of value like gold, it would actually be the 16th most valuable currency in the world, just under, I think MXN is the Mexican, I forgot what it's called, so it's the Mexican currency, but we're just under it, and I think this is a very nice visual of how many stats one single unit of that currency is worth and the total circulating supply with its market cap in Bitcoin. But ladies and gents, that concludes the video for today. I hope you did enjoy it. If you did, make sure to smash up the like button, subscribe, turn on the notification bell. But I will see you all very soon. Have a beautiful day and weekend. And yeah, take care, guys, and bye-bye.